In the deep, forgotten corners of the galaxy, a lone human soldier named Jack wandered the alien planet. He had been sent on a simple reconnaissance mission, one that required him to be quick and unnoticed. But when he arrived on the planet, he felt something strange in the air, a feeling that this mission would not be like the others. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the alien landscape. Jack was making his way through a dense forest when he suddenly heard a rustling sound. Instinctively, he dropped to the ground, taking cover behind a large rock. His eyes scanned the area, searching for any movement. That's when he saw her. A figure in the distance, a woman. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered with an ethereal glow, and her hair flowed like strands of silver light. She was running, hurriedly, almost as if she was being chased. Jack's heart raced, and before he could stop himself, he moved forward to help. The woman, clearly exhausted and frightened, didn't seem to notice Jack approaching. She stumbled, falling to the ground. Jack quickly ran to her side, his hand reaching out to help her up. When their eyes met, she froze. Her eyes were the color of deep space, blue, with stars twinkling inside them. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Who are you?" The woman whispered in a voice that sounded like music, though it was filled with fear. Jack had no answer at first. He didn't know who she was, but something told him she wasn't just any ordinary alien. There was something about her that made him feel like he needed to protect her. "I'm here to help," Jack said, his voice firm yet reassuring. He had no idea why he was so sure about his words. Maybe it was her vulnerability, or maybe it was the desperate look in her eyes. Without another word, he helped her to her feet, keeping a close eye on their surroundings. The woman's gaze softened, and she leaned into him slightly, her body trembling with fear. "I don't know who you are," she said softly, "but thank you." Jack nodded, though he still didn't know what was going on. But something deep inside told him this was just the beginning of an unexpected journey. He had no idea what was ahead, but one thing was clear. He would do whatever it took to keep her safe. In that moment, Jack became more than just a soldier. He had unknowingly become her protector. Jack helped the mysterious woman into a nearby cave, where they could take shelter from the growing dangers of the planet's wild terrain. The light from the dying sun barely penetrated the thick forest, casting eerie shadows on the walls of the cave. Jack felt an unsettling chill in the air, though he couldn't tell if it was from the planet itself or the weight of the unknown secrets hanging between them. As he set up a small fire, the woman finally spoke again. Her voice, soft and melodic, broke the heavy silence that had settled around them. "Thank you for saving me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't think anyone would come for me." Jack turned to her, trying to read her expression, but it was difficult with her glowing skin in the dim firelight. "I couldn't just leave you out there," he replied, though part of him still didn't fully understand why he'd acted so quickly to protect her. He had no connection to this world or its people, yet he felt as though he'd been guided to her. The woman lowered her head, as if trying to gather her thoughts, before looking up at Jack. "I am Princess Lyra of the Ilani. My people, we are not like humans." She hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. I was taken by enemies from my own world. They were after me because of my bloodline." Jack's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "Your bloodline? What do you mean?" She looked at him with a mix of sadness and urgency. "My father, the king of the Ilani, has always been protective of our people, but there's a secret, a terrible truth that he's kept hidden." She paused, her gaze shifting to the fire as if the flames could provide her some comfort. "The Ilani are dying. Our lineage is cursed, and without a human, without someone like you, we can't survive." Jack stood frozen, trying to absorb what she was saying. He had heard of alien species with unique abilities, but it was far beyond anything he could have imagined. A curse, a dying race. "But why me?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I'm just a soldier. How could I possibly?" "You have something we need," she interrupted gently. "The humans. You have a gift, a life force unlike anything we have ever known. You are more than just a species to us. You are our hope." Jack was stunned, the gravity of her words settling in. He had always known there was something extraordinary about humans, something that made them resilient, adaptable. But he had never thought it could be the key to saving an entire alien race. As the fire crackled between them, Jack found himself in a position he never expected. The fate of the Ilani people now rested on his shoulders, and although he was still processing the weight of it all, one thing was clear. He was no longer just a soldier on a mission. He was caught in a story far larger than he could have ever imagined, with the beautiful, fragile Princess Lyra at the center of it. And in that moment, he understood. His journey had only just begun. The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. Jack and Lyra traveled through the dense alien forest, never staying in one place too long. They had to keep moving, always looking over their shoulders. Jack had no idea who or what was hunting them, but it was clear that Lyra's enemies were relentless, and the longer they stayed in one spot, the greater the risk they faced. The princess had grown stronger each day. Her glowing skin seemed to pulse with life, especially when they found safe, quiet places to rest. Jack had noticed it. Every time they were out of immediate danger, Lyra's strength seemed to return, her energy revitalized. She wasn't just any alien. She was something more, something special. One night, while they camped by a small stream, Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes filled with both gratitude and worry. "I know this must be overwhelming for you, but you must understand, this is not just about me," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of years of hardship. "The Ilani are fading. Our people, we are on the brink of extinction." Jack sat by the fire, his gaze fixed on the flames. He had grown used to the alien environment, but the gravity of what Lyra had shared still weighed heavily on him. She had come from a world that seemed so far beyond anything he had ever known. She had a whole planet, a whole people, depending on him. It was a responsibility he hadn't asked for, but one he now found himself accepting. "I don't understand," Jack said, his voice low. "How can I possibly help you? I'm just a man. I'm not a hero. I've never been a hero." Lyra's eyes softened, and she moved closer to him. Her hand gently brushed against his, a touch that sent a warm, electric sensation up his arm. For a moment, the world seemed to fade away, and the only thing that existed was the princess in front of him. "You already are a hero to me," she said quietly. "Your courage, your willingness to help a stranger, it is more than I could ever ask for. You may not understand it, but to me, you are the key to saving my people." Jack looked into her eyes, seeing the desperation, the hope, and the trust she placed in him. It wasn't just a matter of survival for Lyra. It was a matter of everything she knew, everything she loved. The weight of her words settled deep in his chest. "I can't let you down," Jack murmured, his voice filled with a determination he hadn't known he was capable of. "I won't let you down." For the first time in their journey, a sense of peace seemed to wash over Lyra. She smiled softly, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. And in that moment, something changed between them. It wasn't just the promise of survival, nor was it just the need for protection. There was something deeper now, a bond forming between them that neither of them could have predicted. Jack realized that, whether he liked it or not, he was no longer just a soldier on a mission. He had become something else. A protector, a friend, and maybe even more. The path ahead was uncertain, and danger was always lurking in the shadows. But for the first time in his life, Jack felt like he was fighting for something bigger than himself. As the fire crackled softly between them, Jack and Lyra shared a moment of silence. There were no words to describe what had just passed between them, but both of them understood. They were in this together, for better or worse. And the future, whatever it might hold, was theirs to face. Together. The following days grew more intense as Jack and Lyra ventured deeper into unknown territory. The dense alien forest seemed to stretch on forever, with strange sounds echoing in the distance. The air was thick with humidity, and strange bioluminescent plants lit their path at night, casting an eerie glow over their journey. Every corner seemed to hide something dangerous, yet both of them knew they couldn't stop. Lyra had become more distant lately. She was quiet, her mind seemingly consumed by something she wasn't sharing. Jack noticed the way her eyes scanned the environment constantly, her body tense at every noise. The serene princess he had once known seemed to have changed. The stress of the situation was starting to take its toll on her. "Lyra," Jack said one evening as they sat by a small fire, "what's going on? You've been so quiet, like you're waiting for something, or someone." Lyra hesitated, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames. She took a deep breath before finally speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're coming," she said, her tone sharp with urgency. "I didn't want to tell you, but the truth is, we aren't just running from the hunters. There are people, creatures, who want to make sure I never get back to my people." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had known that Lyra had enemies, but hearing her say it so plainly made everything feel so real. She wasn't just running from random threats. This was calculated. Whoever these creatures were, they had a clear objective. Her. "But why you?" Jack asked, trying to understand. "You're the princess of your people, right? You're supposed to be safe. You shouldn't be out here running like this." Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping. "It's because I'm the last hope for the Ilani. Without me, there's no future for my people. I was supposed to unite us and lead us into a new era. But there are those who don't want that. There are factions who don't want change. They want to keep things the way they were, stagnant, controlled. They would rather see me dead than to see my people free." The revelation hit Jack harder than he expected. He had thought that Lyra's journey had been about survival. He hadn't realized that the stakes were higher than he could ever imagine. She wasn't just running from her enemies. She was carrying the weight of an entire civilization on her shoulders. "And these people who are after you?" Jack asked, his voice steady, though inside a storm was brewing. "What do they want? Why are they hunting you down?" Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "They believe that I'm the key to unlocking something powerful. If they kill me before I can fulfill my destiny, they can claim that power for themselves. They know that I can bring about a new beginning for my people, and they fear that. They fear what that would mean for their control." Jack clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. He hadn't signed up for this, but there was no way he could walk away now. Lyra wasn't just some princess in distress. She was the key to an entire civilization's future, and Jack was not going to let her down. "We can't run forever," Jack said, determination flooding his words. "We need to find a way to fight back. I'll help you, Lyra. I won't let anyone hurt you." Lyra met his gaze, her eyes softening. She was silent for a moment, clearly weighing her options. Then, as if she had made up her mind, she nodded. "I'm glad you're with me, Jack. Together, we'll make sure my people have a chance at a new beginning." The night was still, save for the crackling of the fire. But within Jack, a new purpose was beginning to burn. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, and the dangers were only beginning. But with Lyra by his side, and his promise to protect her, he was ready to face whatever came their way. Together, they would fight. Together, they would change the fate of the Ilani people. The next morning, Jack and Lyra continued their journey through the alien landscape. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden glow across the dense alien forest, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air was still, too still. Not a bird chirped, not a creature moved through the underbrush. Even the usual rustle of the wind through the trees had gone silent. Lyra, sensing the same tension, gripped her weapon tightly, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Jack could see her unease, her posture stiffening as if waiting for something. It wasn't just the threat of the creatures who had hunted her for so long. It was something else, something more dangerous that lurked in the shadows. Jack spoke in a hushed tone. "Lyra, what's wrong?" Her eyes flicked to him, and for a brief moment, there was a look of regret in them. "They're close," she whispered. "I didn't want to tell you, but I'm afraid we're being tracked. They know we're here. They've been following us for days." A chill ran down Jack's spine. The thought that someone, or something, was hunting them made his heart race. But he couldn't show fear. Not now. Not when Lyra was depending on him. "Who is they?" Jack asked, glancing around the forest, trying to spot any movement. The trees seemed to close in on them, the dense foliage blocking their view. Every step they took felt like it might be their last. "The ones who want to stop me," Lyra said, her voice low but firm. "They're mercenaries. Trained soldiers, sent to ensure that I never return to my people. They're ruthless, and they know how to hide in plain sight." Jack frowned. "So they're not just chasing you because you're a princess. They're after something more, something powerful." Lyra nodded. "Yes, I've told you that I'm the key to my people's future, but there's more. There's an ancient artifact, a relic that only I can activate. It holds the power to reshape the future of my people, to end the corruption and bring freedom. But if it falls into the wrong hands, into the hands of my enemies, they will use it to control my people, to control the galaxy." Jack's mind raced. The weight of her words hit him hard. The fate of an entire civilization rested on their shoulders. And now, not only was he trying to protect her, but he was also the one standing between her enemies and the power they sought to control. "But if you can activate this relic, why don't we just go to it now?" Jack asked, his voice filled with urgency. "Why wait? We need to get to it before they do." Lyra shook her head, a sorrowful expression crossing her face. "It's not that simple. The relic is hidden in a place only known to the Ilani royal family. It's heavily guarded, and there's only one way to access it. The one way that no one knows except me. But I can't do it alone." "Jack." Jack's heart beat faster. He had known this wasn't going to be easy, but now the stakes were higher than ever. He wasn't just protecting Lyra. He was helping her save her people from a future of enslavement and tyranny. And there was no way he would let that happen. "We'll get to the relic," Jack said with determination. "Together, we'll make sure no one gets their hands on it. I swear it." Lyra's eyes softened, gratitude shining through. She reached out, placing her hand on his arm. "Thank you, Jack. Your bravery is a light in the darkness. I'm lucky to have you by my side." Before Jack could respond, a sudden noise pierced the silence. A sharp crack through the trees, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. The mercenaries had found them. "Get ready," Lyra whispered, her voice steady despite the tension. "This is just the beginning. We'll have to fight our way to the relic." Jack's pulse quickened as he turned to face the encroaching threat. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He would fight with everything he had to protect Lyra, to protect her people, and to keep the relic out of the hands of those who sought to use it for evil. The battle was about to begin. The mercenaries were getting closer. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the dense alien forest, each step getting louder as they closed in. Jack could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. There was no turning back now. Lyra's life, the fate of her people, and the relic they sought were all on the line. Jack's hand instinctively reached for the weapon Lyra had given him, a sleek, high-tech blaster that hummed with potential. His fingers wrapped around it, the cool metal giving him a sense of readiness. He could hear Lyra's breath steady beside him, her hand still gripping her own weapon, her face set in a look of fierce determination. "They're not just here to capture me," Lyra murmured, her eyes scanning the area. "They want to kill me. They can't let me reach the relic. They'll do anything to stop us." Jack's stomach tightened. He had no illusions about the danger they were in. These were not just any mercenaries. They were highly trained, lethal, and relentless. But Jack had made a promise, and he would not let fear stop him from keeping it. He turned to Lyra. "We'll make it, together." Her gaze met his, and for a fleeting moment, the tension in her expression softened. She didn't say anything, but the unspoken bond between them was clear. They were a team now, and nothing would break them apart. The first mercenary emerged from the trees, his silhouette barely visible in the thick underbrush. His sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, and Jack could feel the tension mounting in the air. He could almost hear the mercenary's thoughts. Where are they? Without warning, the mercenary broke into a sprint, moving fast, too fast for Jack to react in time. But before he could fire, a shot rang out from Lyra's direction. The mercenary's head jerked back, a spray of red mist exploding from the impact. He dropped to the ground with a thud. Jack's heart raced, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. That was just the first. More mercenaries appeared from the shadows, their weapons raised and ready to fire. They spread out in a wide formation, trying to flank them from all sides. Jack's pulse quickened, but he didn't hesitate. He fired. The blast hit its target, sending another mercenary crashing to the ground. But there were too many. They were surrounded. "Jack," Lyra called, her voice strained. "We have to move. Now." She grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a nearby cave hidden in the rocks. The entrance was narrow, just big enough for the two of them to squeeze through. They ran, adrenaline surging through their veins as gunfire erupted behind them. Jack could hear the mercenaries shouting, but he didn't look back. They reached the cave and ducked inside, panting heavily. The cave's interior was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of Lyra's energy blade. Jack's chest heaved as he leaned against the cool rock, trying to steady his breath. "We can't stay here long," Lyra said, her voice low and urgent. "They'll track us." Jack nodded, trying to gather his thoughts. "We can't outrun them forever. We need to get to the relic. It's our only hope." Lyra glanced at him, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. "The relic is still far away, but we know the mercenaries are after it too. The longer we wait, the more time they have to catch up with us. If we don't act fast, we won't make it," Jack finished for her. "I get it. So what's the plan?" Lyra's eyes narrowed, and for a moment she looked like the princess she truly was, strong, wise, and filled with purpose. "We'll have to fight our way through. There's no other way." Jack felt the weight of the decision. He had no experience with battles like this, no idea how to face the forces that were coming after them. But one thing was clear: he would do whatever it took to protect Lyra and her people. "We can do this," Jack said, determination in his voice. Lyra gave him a small, grateful smile. "We can." The sound of footsteps grew louder outside the cave. They weren't alone. The mercenaries were closing in. It was time to fight. Jack gripped his blaster tighter, preparing for the battle that was about to unfold. They had no choice now. The fight for the relic, and the future of Lyra's people, had begun. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed louder through the cave's narrow passages. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. Outside, the mercenaries were closing in fast. Time was running out. Lyra's eyes were fixed on the entrance, her hand gripping the energy blade she used so expertly before. The calm demeanor she wore before had shifted to sheer focus, her lips set in a tight line. Jack could feel her determination in the air, and it fueled his own resolve. "They're not going to give up easily," she said, her voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "Once they find us, they'll never stop until we're dead or captured. We can't let that happen." Jack nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. He had promised to protect her, to help her find the relic, but now they were fighting for survival. The stakes had risen, and the odds seemed impossible. "We have no choice but to fight," Jack replied, his voice more confident now. He glanced around the cave. It wasn't much of a hideout. There were no escape routes, and the entrance was too small to fit both of them and their enemies at the same time. They would have to make their stand here. Lyra's gaze shifted to a small rusted pipe on the far wall. She took a few quick steps toward it and began examining it. "I may have an idea," she murmured, more to herself than to Jack. Jack quickly turned his attention back to the entrance. The sound of mercenaries' voices became clearer, too clear. They were getting close. Lyra walked back to Jack with purpose. "I've rigged the pipe. It's part of the old mining system. When the mercenaries come through, we'll have a chance to surprise them." Jack's eyebrows furrowed. "How?" Lyra met his gaze, her eyes sharp and intense. "We need to buy time. I'll use the pipe's old pressure system to release a blast. It'll block their path and slow them down, but it won't take long. We'll have to move fast." Jack's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." He could hear the mercenaries getting closer. Every second mattered now. Lyra approached the pipe, muttering commands to herself, using her alien knowledge to manipulate the old technology. Jack stood back, watching, his blaster ready in case they needed to make a quick escape. Then, a loud hiss filled the air as the pressure system activated. A deafening blast of steam erupted from the pipe, momentarily blinding and disorienting the mercenaries who had been on their way. Jack and Lyra seized the opportunity. Without a second thought, they dashed for the entrance. The mercenaries staggered back, their faces twisted in surprise and confusion. They had no time to react before Jack fired a series of precise shots, taking down 2 of them. The others scattered, attempting to regroup, but they had lost the element of surprise. Jack and Lyra fought side by side, their movements synchronized despite the chaos around them. Lyra's energy blade flashed in the dim light, cutting down enemies with precise strikes, while Jack provided cover fire, picking off those who dared to come too close. But the mercenaries weren't giving up. More of them poured in from the shadows, closing in on the entrance. Jack's pulse quickened. They couldn't keep this up forever. He needed to make a decision. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Jack saw something, a glint of metal, a weapon on the ground just beyond the mercenaries' reach. He knew what it was. The relic. The very thing they had come all this way for. "Lyra," he shouted, grabbing her attention. "The relic. We have to get to it." Without hesitation, Lyra nodded. They had no choice. They couldn't let the mercenaries take it. With all the strength they had left, Jack and Lyra pushed forward, using their surroundings to their advantage. They took down one mercenary after another, their focus locked on the relic. They knew they couldn't afford to lose this final battle. As Jack reached for the relic, his heart skipped a beat. The energy it radiated was unlike anything he'd ever felt. Powerful, yet familiar, but there was no time to dwell on it. They had to escape. Just as Jack grasped the relic, a final mercenary lunged at him. He swung his blaster around and fired just as the mercenary was about to strike. The shot hit its target, sending the last of the attackers to the ground. Breathing heavily, Jack turned to Lyra. "We've got it. Now, we run." Lyra gave him a small, relieved smile. "Let's go." Together, they sprinted toward the distant exit, the relic secured and their mission nearly complete. But as the sounds of the mercenaries' defeat echoed behind them, Jack couldn't help but feel a new weight. The journey was far from over. There was more to this relic than either of them had realized. And whatever lay ahead, they would face it together.